I'm Jessica Walsh, 22 years old, standing alone in Harvard Yard in my crimson graduation gown. My eyes scan the crowd desperately for familiar faces, my parents, as I check my phone for the 20th time. No messages. The hurt and disappointment wash over me like a tidal wave. They really aren't coming. In that moment, I make a split-second decision to live stream my graduation on social media instead. I had no idea that pressing go live would completely change my life and expose the bitter truth about my family I'd spent years trying to hide. Before I dive into my story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and if this resonates with you at all, hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, what happened after I started that live stream is something you won't want to miss. Growing up in Highland Park, an affluent Chicago suburb, I lived in a pristine 5-bedroom house with a perfectly manicured lawn. From the outside, we were the picture-perfect American family. My father, Robert Walsh, is a renowned cardiovascular surgeon at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. My mother, Diane, is a corporate attorney who specializes in mergers and acquisitions for a prestigious downtown firm. They drive luxury cars, belong to the right country club, and donate to all the right charities. Image is everything to them. But behind closed doors, our family dynamic was anything but perfect. For as long as I can remember, there was this unspoken expectation that I would achieve excellence in everything I did. A 98% on a test would prompt questions about the missing 2%. Piano recitals weren't opportunities for enjoyment but performances to be scrutinized. My childhood bedroom walls weren't decorated with posters of bands or movie stars. They were lined with academic awards and achievement certificates. Walshes don't settle for mediocrity. My father would say whenever I showed even the slightest sign of being a normal kid who wanted to hang out with friends or take a break. Then there was my younger brother, Tyler. 3 years younger than me, Tyler showed athletic promise from an early age. He was a natural at baseball, and my parents noticed. While I was expected to maintain perfect grades, Tyler was allowed more leeway academically because he's focusing on his athletic career. My parents never missed his games, not a single one. They would rearrange their busy schedules, reschedule important meetings, and even once my mother flew back early from a business trip in Tokyo just to see him pitch in a regular season game. My achievements, however, were treated as expected, not exceptional. When I was accepted into the National Honor Society, my parents nodded approvingly and said, "That's what hard work gets you." When Tyler made the varsity baseball team as a freshman, they threw him a surprise party with 30 guests. Don't get me wrong, my parents provided everything I needed materially. Designer clothes, the latest technology, expensive SAT prep courses, and private tutors. But the one thing I craved, their genuine attention and approval, was always just out of reach. My journey to Harvard was paved with sleepless nights, anxiety attacks before major exams, and a relentless drive that came from knowing I had to be twice as good to get half the recognition. I graduated as valedictorian with perfect SAT scores, led 3 school clubs, volunteered at the hospital where my father worked, though he rarely acknowledged me there, and wrote an admissions essay that made my English teacher cry. When the acceptance letter from Harvard arrived, I was ecstatic. This was it, the ultimate achievement. Surely now they would see me. I remember running into the living room where my parents were watching Tyler's game highlights, clutching the letter in my trembling hands. "I got into Harvard," I announced, my voice cracking with emotion. My mother looked up briefly. "That's nice, honey. We expected you would." My father nodded without taking his eyes off the screen. "Good job. Those tuition bills will be something else." 2 months later, when Tyler got scouted by a minor league team, they took the entire family out to celebrate at Chicago's most exclusive restaurant. Despite all this, I never stopped hoping that one day I would do something that would make them truly see me. Harvard graduation felt like my last chance. They had actually promised, that they would be there no matter what. Mom had even shown me the hotel reservation she'd made months in advance. Then, the night before graduation, I got the text message. Something came up. Emergency partners meeting for mom. I need to attend a medical conference. So proud of you, though. Take lots of pictures. It wasn't until I was scrolling through Instagram later that night that I saw at my mother's fresh post showing Tyler at his regional baseball tournament with the caption, "So proud of our star. Wouldn't miss this for the world. Proud mom baseball family." The timestamp was 10 minutes after she had texted me about her emergency meeting. That's when I knew that my graduation truly didn't matter to them. I cried myself to sleep in my dorm room for the last time, my roommate Amelia awkwardly trying to comfort me while I sobbed into my pillow. The morning of graduation dawned bright and clear, one of those perfect May days in Cambridge that makes the red brick buildings glow. I got ready in a daze, pinning my cap in place while Amelia chattered excitedly about her parents flying in from Seattle. She paused mid-sentence when she noticed me staring blankly at my reflection. "They're really not coming, are they?" she asked softly. I shook my head, not trusting myself to speak without crying. The ceremony itself felt like an out-of-body experience. I went through the motions, walking across the stage when they called Jessica Marie Walsh, summa cum laude, accepting my diploma with a handshake and a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Where normally graduates would wave to their cheering families, I stared at the empty section where my parents should have been sitting. After the ceremony, graduates and their families flooded Harvard Yard for photos and celebrations. I stood awkwardly to the side, watching as Amelia's parents showered her with flowers and proud hugs. Several of my classmates came by to introduce me to their families, and each time I had to explain that my parents couldn't make it with a practiced smile that hurt my face. It was during one of these painful moments that Amelia approached me with her phone in hand. "Why don't you live stream for your relatives who couldn't be here?" she suggested. "My aunt in Australia is watching mine. It might make you feel less alone." At first I hesitated, but then I thought, why not? At least my distant cousins and my grandmother in Florida might appreciate seeing me graduate. So I took a deep breath, opened my Instagram app, and hit the Go Live button. "Hi everyone," I began, trying to sound cheerful. "I just graduated from Harvard, and I wanted to share this moment with you all since my parents couldn't make it. They're at my brother's baseball tournament." I hadn't planned to mention why my parents weren't there, but it slipped out before I could stop myself. I continued showing the scenery, the celebrations around me, and introducing some of my friends to whoever might be watching, expecting maybe a dozen viewers at most. But then something strange happened. The viewer count started climbing rapidly. 50, 100, 500, 1,000. Comments began flooding in so fast I couldn't read them all. "Congratulations. Your parents missed Harvard graduation for a baseball game? You deserve better. We're your family now." The outpouring of support from complete strangers caught me off guard, and before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. But for once, they weren't tears of hurt, they were tears of validation. For the first time, I felt truly seen. "I know this might seem silly to some of you," I said to the camera, my voice growing steadier as I spoke, "but I've spent my whole life trying to be good enough, to be seen. Today I graduated summa cum laude from Harvard University, and the two people who should be here to see it chose not to come. But you know what? I'm still proud of myself. I did this for me, not for them. And if they can't see my worth, that's their loss." I hadn't planned that speech. The words just poured out of me, years of pent-up feelings finally finding release. By the time I finished speaking, the viewer count had reached 15,000. I spent the rest of the afternoon celebrating with friends, occasionally checking back in with my unexpected audience, sharing the graduation lunch, the final walk through the campus, and the evening celebrations. By the time I ended the live stream 5 hours later, over 50,000 people had watched. Exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the day, I turned off my phone and collapsed into bed in Amelia's apartment, where I was staying until I could move into my new place. I fell asleep unaware that my live stream had been recorded, shared, and was rapidly spreading across multiple social media platforms. Unaware that by morning, my private family drama would become very, very public. I woke up the next morning to the insistent buzzing of my phone, which I'd plugged in and turned back on sometime during the night. Squinting at the screen, I was greeted by an avalanche of notifications. 17,842 Instagram notifications, 3,452 new followers, 9,726 Twitter mentions, hundreds of friend requests on Facebook, 12 missed calls from unknown numbers, 63 text messages. For a moment, I thought my phone was malfunctioning. Then I opened Instagram, and reality hit me like a freight train. My live stream had gone viral. Overnight, clips from my most vulnerable moment had been shared across every major social media platform. Jessica Deserves Better was trending nationally. Internet detectives, in their infinite persistence, had found my parents' social media accounts. Screenshots of my mother's Instagram post at Tyler's baseball game, time-stamped during my graduation, were being shared alongside clips of me tearfully explaining their absence. The side-by-side comparison was damning. My heart raced as I scrolled through comment after comment. What kind of parents miss Harvard graduation for a baseball game? This is emotional neglect. Her poise and grace, despite being abandoned on her big day, is incredible. I'm crying watching this. Jessica, we're all your family now. It was overwhelming. While part of me felt validated by the support, another part felt exposed and vulnerable. I had never intended to broadcast my family issues to the world. This was a private pain that had suddenly become very public. My phone rang, displaying a local Boston news number. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again, a different news outlet. I turned it to silent, but the notifications continued to flood in. Among the chaos, I saw a text from Amelia. "Oh my God, Jessica, you're everywhere online. I just got offered $500 for an interview about you." I felt a cold pit form in my stomach. I called her immediately. "Amelia, please don't talk to reporters about me," I pleaded. "I already did a quick phone interview," she admitted sheepishly. "Just with the college paper. They caught me on my way to the airport. I only said nice things, I promise." The betrayal stung. I knew Amelia meant well, but this was my story to tell or not tell. I hung up, feeling more alone than ever. Opening my email, I found hundreds of messages from strangers sharing their own stories of parental disappointment and neglect. Many were heartbreakingly similar to mine. My parents missed my medical school graduation because my sister had a dance recital. My father has never attended a single school event, even though he lives 10 minutes away. I was valedictorian, and my parents didn't come because they were on vacation. These messages touched me deeply. I wasn't alone in this experience, and somehow knowing that made it both better and worse. As the day progressed, the situation spiraled further out of control. Local news had picked up the story. A reporter from the Boston Globe had somehow gotten my number and was texting me for comment. My Harvard email was flooded with interview requests. Even Tyler had texted, "What the hell, Jess? Why are you doing this to Mom and Dad?" I felt panicked, trapped in an avalanche of my own inadvertent creation. I needed to regain some control over the narrative before it completely consumed me. With shaking hands, I opened Instagram again and started recording a follow-up video. "Hi everyone, it's Jessica Walsh again. I want to thank you all for the incredible outpouring of support. I never expected my graduation live stream to reach so many people. To be honest, I'm overwhelmed. This was never about exposing my family or seeking attention. It was just me trying to share a significant moment in my life. I appreciate your concern, but I'd like to request privacy as I navigate this situation with my family. Thank you for understanding." I posted the video, hoping it would calm the storm. Instead, it fueled it. People praised my maturity and grace under pressure, which only seemed to intensify the public outrage toward my parents. The internet had chosen its villain in this story, and no measured response from me was going to change that now. Little did I know, while I was trying to manage the public's reaction, my family was preparing their own response. and it wouldn't be nearly as measured as mine. My phone rang at 6:13 a.m. the following morning. My father's name flashed on the screen. Taking a deep breath, I answered, already knowing this wouldn't be a congratulatory call. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" His voice was ice cold, controlled fury evident in every syllable. "Dad, do you have any idea what you've done?" He cut me off. "Your mother is being harassed at work." Tyler's coach pulled him aside to ask if everything was okay at home. "Our neighbors are looking at us like we're monsters. All because you decided to throw a public tantrum." "It wasn't a tantrum," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "I was just sharing my graduation since you both chose not to be there." "Chose?" he was shouting now. "We have lives, Jessica, important responsibilities. The world doesn't revolve around you and your need for attention." I heard my mother's voice in the background, and then she was on the phone. "Jessica Marie Walsh," she said, her lawyer voice in full effect. "This is absolutely unacceptable behavior. You've humiliated us publicly. Do you know how this looks? Do you know what my colleagues are saying? Do you know how it looked when I had to explain to everyone why my parents weren't at my Harvard graduation?" I countered, finding my voice. "Do you know how it felt to see your Instagram post at Tyler's game after you told me you had an emergency partners meeting?" A moment of silence. I'd caught her in the lie, and we both knew it. "That's different," she finally said. "Tyler needed us there. It was a crucial game for his career, and my Harvard graduation wasn't crucial for mine." My voice broke. "You've always been self-sufficient," she replied dismissively. "Tyler needs more support." The conversation deteriorated from there. My father returned to the phone to inform me that they would be re-evaluating their financial support if this attention-seeking behavior continued. My mother demanded I post a public apology, claiming my live stream had been emotionally exaggerated and that I had misrepresented their dedication as parents. "We've given you everything," my father said. "The best schools, the best opportunities, and this is how you repay us?" "You gave me things, Dad. Not time, not attention, not love." "Oh, spare me the therapy talk," he scoffed. "If you don't fix this, Jessica, there will be consequences, real ones." The call ended with an ultimatum: publicly retract my false narrative or be cut off completely financially and otherwise. Within an hour, Tyler was texting me. "How could you do this to them? They've sacrificed everything for us. You're just jealous because I have a real career path, and you spent 4 years getting a useless liberal arts degree. Mom is crying because of you. Fix this or don't bother coming home ever again." Then came the extended family. My Aunt Meredith, my father's sister, called to express her deep disappointment in my immature behavior. My cousin Blake, who I'd always been close with, messaged that I needed to grow up and stop playing victim. My mother's college friend, who had always been like an aunt to me, sent a scathing email about how I had always been difficult and attention-seeking. Even family friends joined in. Mrs. Peterson from next door, who had known me since I was a baby, texted, "Your parents are devastated. Whatever issues you have should be handled privately. This public shaming is beneath you, Jessica." With each message, each call, I felt increasingly isolated. The people who had known me my entire life were choosing to believe I was manipulative and attention-seeking rather than considering that maybe, just maybe, my parents had actually hurt me. By evening, I received a formal email from my father. The subject line read, "Terms of Reconciliation." Inside was a bulleted list of demands. 1. Post a public retraction and apology on all social media platforms. 2. Contact all news outlets who had covered the story and issue a statement that you exaggerated for attention. 3. Acknowledge in writing that you understand your parents' absence was necessary and justified. 4. Agree to family counseling with their pre-approved therapist. 5. Sign an agreement not to discuss family matters publicly again. The email concluded, "If these terms are not met within 24 hours, we will be forced to distance ourselves from you completely. Your choice, Jessica." I stared at the screen, tears blurring my vision. There was no acknowledgement of my feelings, no apology for missing my graduation, not even a congratulations on my accomplishment, just demands and threats. For the first time, I saw with complete clarity what I had always suspected but never fully accepted. My parents' love was conditional. I was only valuable to them when I complied, when I was convenient, when I didn't require anything from them that they didn't want to give. My hands shaking, I typed a single line in response. I'm sorry you feel that way, but I won't apologize for telling the truth. My father's response came within minutes. Then you're no longer part of this family. 5 words. 22 years of being their daughter, erased in 5 words. I curled up on Amelia's couch, my world crumbling around me. I was now truly alone, cut off from the only family I had ever known, all because I had dared to speak my truth. The day after being disowned, I woke up feeling strangely hollow. I moved through the morning in a fog, making coffee I couldn't taste, staring out the window at a world that suddenly seemed disconnected from my reality. My phone continued to buzz, but I ignored it. What was the point? The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had thrown me away like I meant nothing. Around noon, I finally mustered the strength to check my messages. Amidst the continuing flood of supportive comments from strangers was an email that caught my eye. The sender was Dr. Eleanor Martinez, my high school AP literature teacher. Dear Jessica, it read. I saw what happened. I always suspected things weren't right at home. The way you would flinch when parent-teacher conferences came around, how you would downplay your achievements. What you're going through now is unfair and cruel, but I want you to know that you have people in your corner. I've always been proud of you, and nothing will change that. Please call me if you need anything at all. Tears sprang to my eyes as I read her words. Dr. Martinez had always been kind to me, but I had no idea she had noticed my struggles. Her validation meant more than she could possibly know. As I scrolled through more messages, I saw a text from a number I didn't immediately recognize. Jess, it's Zoe. Zoe Parker from Westridge High. I don't know if you remember me, but we were lab partners in AP Chemistry. I just wanted to say that I see you, and what your parents did was wrong. I've been defending you online because I remember how they were at school events. Always on their phones during your presentations, always leaving early, but they'd sit through entire baseball games for Tyler, I noticed. Others did too. You're not crazy or attention-seeking? Call me if you want to talk. Zoe Parker. Of course I remembered her. We'd been friendly in high school but lost touch after graduation. I hadn't realized she had observed so much about my family dynamic. I texted her back immediately, and within an hour, we were meeting at a coffee shop near Amelia's apartment. The internet is rallying behind you, Zoe told me, as we sat down with our lattes. Your parents' social media accounts are being flooded with comments. They had to make everything private. I didn't want that, I said, feeling guilty despite myself. Maybe not, but they earned it, Zoe replied firmly. Look, Jess, I need to tell you something. I always knew something was off with how they treated you. Remember junior year when you won that national essay contest? Your parents didn't even come to the award ceremony, but they threw a massive party when Tyler made varsity as a freshman. Everyone saw it. We just didn't know what to say. Hearing that others had noticed my parents' behavior was both validating and painful. All those years I'd thought I was overreacting, being too sensitive, expecting too much. But others had seen it too. It was real. Back at the apartment, I found an email from Professor Kimberly Bennett, my thesis advisor at Harvard. She requested a meeting at my earliest convenience. Expecting a professional courtesy check-in, I was surprised when I arrived at her office to find her waiting with a concerned expression. Jessica, she said, gesturing for me to sit, I've seen what's happening online. First, let me say congratulations again on your outstanding thesis and graduation. Second, I want you to know that you have my full support. Thank you, Professor, I said, unsure where this was going. I don't normally share personal details with students, she continued, but I think it might help you to know that I understand more than you might expect. My parents didn't attend my college graduation either, or my PhD ceremony, or when I received tenure. I looked at her with new eyes. Professor Bennett was one of the most accomplished people I knew, respected, published, brilliant. It had never occurred to me that she might have experienced similar rejection. "How did you deal with it?" I asked. "Not as gracefully as you are," she admitted with a small smile. "It took years of therapy for me to understand that their inability to celebrate me wasn't a reflection of my worth, but of their limitations. Jessica, you are exceptional. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." As I left her office, my phone rang with an unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something compelled me to answer. "Is this Jessica Walsh?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, speaking. My name is Natalie Winters from Horizon Media. We've been following your story, and we'd like to offer you an opportunity to tell it on your own terms. A full interview, professionally done, with complete editorial control on your side." I was stunned. "Why would you want to interview me?" "Because you've struck a chord with people, Jessica. Your story is resonating with thousands who have experienced similar family dynamics but never had the courage to speak up. This isn't about sensationalism, it's about giving voice to an important conversation." As if that wasn't surprising enough, later that evening I received an email from the CEO of Innovatech, a rising tech company specializing in educational software. "Miss Walsh," it read, "your poise and authenticity in the face of difficult circumstances have impressed our entire leadership team. We believe these qualities, combined with your Harvard education, would make you an excellent addition to our management training program. If you're interested, we would love to schedule an interview." The offers didn't stop there. The Alumni Association reached out about creating a Jessica Walsh Resilience Award for students who overcome significant personal obstacles to achieve academic excellence. A popular podcast wanted me as a guest. A support group for adult children of emotionally absent parents asked if I would consider becoming a spokesperson. That night, Zoe and I had dinner at her apartment. As we shared a bottle of wine, she confessed something I hadn't expected. "I always envied you in high school," she said. "You were so accomplished, so put together. I had no idea what you were dealing with at home." "I was good at hiding it," I admitted. "I thought if I just achieved enough, they'd finally see me." "They should have seen you all along," Zoe said fiercely. "You deserved better. You still do." As we talked into the night, I realized something was shifting inside me. The shame and inadequacy that had been my constant companions were beginning to lift. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who saw me clearly and valued me exactly as I was. No conditions, no expectations, just acceptance. I went to bed that night with a strange, unfamiliar feeling blooming in my chest. It took me a while to identify it, but as I drifted off to sleep, I realized what it was: hope. 1 week after graduation, I was slowly finding my footing in this new reality. The media storm had somewhat subsided, and I was cautiously optimistic about moving forward. Zoe had become a constant presence, and Professor Bennett had connected me with a therapist who specialized in family trauma. I had even started preliminary discussions with Innovatech about the management position. Then Zoe called me, her voice tight with anger. "Jessica, are you near a computer? You need to see something." I opened my laptop and navigated to the link she sent. It was an article in the Daily Post, a tabloid-style news site. "Harvard grads troubled past. Sources reveal pattern of attention-seeking behavior." The article quoted sources close to the Walsh family, claiming I had a history of fabricating stories for attention and had been in therapy for pathological lying since high school. None of it was true. I had never been in therapy until now, and I had certainly never had issues with lying. "This is insane," I whispered. "Who would say these things?" "Keep scrolling," Zoe said grimly. Further down, there was a quote from Bradford Thompson, family friend and attorney, stating that the Walshes are devastated by their daughter's mischaracterization of their dedicated parenting and that they have hired our firm to explore legal options regarding these defamatory statements. My parents had hired a PR firm to discredit me. The betrayal cut deep, but it was only the beginning. Later that day, I received a text from my old high school friend Megan with a screenshot of a post from Brittany Collins, someone I'd barely known in high school. For those following the Jessica Walsh drama, let me tell you what she was really like in high school. Always making up stories for attention, always trying to one-up everyone else's achievements. Her parents were actually super supportive. They came to every school event I saw. She's twisting everything for fame. This was categorically false. Brittany and I had shared maybe 2 classes throughout high school, and she had certainly never been around my parents. The post had thousands of shares. Then came the ultimate betrayal. A local Boston news station aired an interview with Tyler. My brother, looking somber in a button-up shirt I recognized as my father's, spoke directly to the camera. My sister has always struggled with feeling like she measures up. Our parents tried everything, extra tutoring, therapy, constant encouragement, but Jessica always wanted more attention. This whole situation is just another cry for help. Our family loves her, but she needs professional help, not public validation. I sat frozen, watching my own brother lie about me on television. The therapy claim was particularly cruel, as my parents had actually refused my request to see a therapist during a period of intense anxiety in high school. Walshes don't need shrinks, my father had said. Just work harder. The attacks continued to escalate. Anonymous accounts began posting screenshots of alleged private messages from me, taken out of context or outright fabricated. One particularly damaging post showed what appeared to be a message from me, admitting the whole thing was an elaborate plan to get back at my parents for focusing on Tyler. I had written no such thing. Then came the institutional betrayal. I received an email notification that someone had requested my complete academic records from Harvard's registrar's office, using my mother's home address for correspondence. As an attorney, she knew exactly how to navigate privacy laws. When I called the office to flag this as unauthorized, I was told the request was already in process, but would be reviewed. That same day, I got a call from the alumni office. Apparently, someone claiming to be me had contacted them to complain about a professor specifically, Professor Bennett. When I explained that I had made no such complaint, the administrator sounded confused. Well, the caller had all your personal information, so we assumed. My parents were systematically attempting to destroy my credibility and sabotage my support system. The final blow came when I tried to access my bank account to pay rent for the apartment I'd secured. Account temporarily frozen pending review, the screen read. The joint account my parents had established for me during college, the one containing all my savings from summer jobs and graduation gifts, was suddenly inaccessible. I called the bank in a panic, only to be informed that as joint account holders, my parents had reported suspicious activity and requested a freeze. I could contest it, but it would take 7 to 10 business days to resolve. Meanwhile, my new landlord called to inform me that he had received concerning information about my rental history and needed to reconsider our agreement. He was vague about the details, but I strongly suspected my parents' involvement. That night, I broke down completely in Zoe's apartment. Sitting on her kitchen floor, back against the refrigerator, I sobbed uncontrollably. "They're trying to destroy me," I choked out between sobs. "My own parents. Who does that?" Zoe sat beside me, her arm around my shoulders. People who care more about their image than their child's well-being. "Maybe I should just give in," I whispered, the fight draining out of me. "Post the apology they want. Say I made it all up. At least then this nightmare would stop." "Is that really what you want?" Zoe asked gently. "To let them rewrite your reality again? To tell the world and yourself that your feelings don't matter? That what you experienced wasn't real?" I didn't answer, but we both knew I couldn't do it. Not after coming this far. Not after finally being seen. "What am I supposed to do?" I asked, wiping my tears with my sleeve. They have all the power, all the resources. I'm just me. Maybe that's enough, Zoe said, squeezing my shoulder. You've got more people on your side than you realize, and tomorrow we start fighting back. I nodded, exhausted beyond words. That night, as I lay on Zoe's pull-out couch, staring at the ceiling, I hit my absolute rock bottom. I had lost my family, my savings, potentially my housing, and now my reputation was under systematic attack. The unfairness of it all was suffocating. For a brief, dark moment, I wondered if surrendering to my parents' demands might be the only way forward. But as dawn broke, something hardened inside me. If they were willing to go this far to silence me, maybe what I had to say was more important than I realized. The morning after my breakdown, Zoe and I sat at her kitchen table with steaming mugs of coffee, planning my next steps. I felt drained but surprisingly clear-headed. Something had shifted during the night, a realization that I couldn't fight this battle alone, but I didn't have to. We need legal advice, Zoe said, scrolling through her contacts. My cousin works at a law firm. Let me see if she can recommend someone who handles these kinds of cases. By noon, we had an appointment with Diane Rodriguez, an attorney specializing in defamation and privacy law, who had agreed to meet with me pro bono after hearing the basics of my situation. Miss Rodriguez's office was small but immaculate, with framed diplomas from Yale Law School and certificates from various legal associations decorating the walls. She listened intently as I detailed everything that had happened, occasionally jotting notes on a yellow legal pad. What your parents are doing borders on harassment and definitely includes defamation, she said when I finished. The false statements about your mental health history, the fabricated messages, your brother's televised interview, these are actionable. We can file for a cease and desist order and document everything for a potential lawsuit. I don't want to sue my family, I said, the words feeling strange in my mouth. Understood. But establishing legal boundaries may be necessary. At minimum, we need to secure your financial independence. That bank account freeze won't hold up to scrutiny you contributed to those funds. She looked at me with kind but determined eyes. Jessica, people with narcissistic tendencies don't respond to appeals for empathy. They respond to consequences. We spent the next hour outlining a strategy. Miss Rodriguez would handle the legal aspects, starting with letters to the bank and my landlord. Meanwhile, I needed to focus on securing my future. As I left her office, I received a call from Professor Bennett. Jessica, I've been thinking about your situation. A journalist friend of mine, Marina Chen from The Atlantic, is interested in speaking with you. She specializes in family psychology and media ethics. Unlike the tabloids, she would approach your story with the nuance it deserves. Would you be interested in speaking with her? Marina turned out to be a godsend. During our initial call, she spent more time explaining journalistic ethics and my rights than asking about my story. She outlined exactly how the interview process would work, what questions she'd ask, and how I could review quotes before publication. The key is telling your story in a controlled environment, she explained. Right now, the narrative is fragmented across social media and sensationalist news outlets. A thoughtful, comprehensive article could help reset the conversation. At her recommendation, I also connected with Jordan Freeman, a former political campaign manager who now provided media training to public figures navigating crises. He agreed to help me prepare for the interview with Marina and any future media appearances. You're not just telling a personal story, Jordan explained during our first session. You're addressing a widespread issue that affects many people. Emotional neglect, conditional love, scapegoating dynamics in families, these are topics that need destigmatizing. He taught me how to stay composed when discussing triggering topics, how to redirect questions that felt invasive, and most importantly, how to speak my truth without being baited into attacks on my family. Your power lies in your authenticity and dignity, he advised. The moment you stoop to their level, making personal attacks or engaging in mudslinging, you lose the moral high ground. Stay focused on your experience, not their character. While legal and media strategies were important, I also needed to address my financial situation. The career counselor at Harvard's Office of Alumni Affairs, Dr. Marcus Williams, helped me develop a financial independence plan. Your Harvard degree opens doors, he reminded me. But we need to be strategic about which ones you walk through. Together, we polished my resume, prepared for interviews with Innovatic and other companies that had reached out, and discussed long-term career planning. Dr. Williams also connected me with the Harvard Emergency Fund, which provided temporary assistance to graduates facing unexpected financial hardship. This isn't charity, he insisted when I hesitated to accept the help. It's exactly what these funds are designed for, supporting talented graduates through extraordinary circumstances so they can go on to succeed. Perhaps most crucial to my healing was the therapy I began with Dr. Natalie Kim, who specialized in family trauma and narcissistic abuse recovery. What you're describing is a classic golden child divided by scapegoat dynamic, she explained during our second session. Your brother was the golden child who could do no wrong, while you were the scapegoat held to impossibly high standards and never quite good enough. Dr. Kim helped me understand that my parents' behavior reflected their limitations, not mine. We worked on processing the grief of losing my family, establishing healthy boundaries, and developing self-validation skills to counteract years of emotional neglect. You've been seeking external validation your whole life because you were never taught how to validate yourself, she observed. That's not your fault, but it is something you can learn. Through therapy, I began to recognize patterns in my own behavior: the perfectionism, the people-pleasing, the constant need to prove myself that stemmed from my upbringing. I started implementing small self-care routines: a morning journal practice, evening walks along the Charles River, saying no to commitments that drained me. I also joined an online support group for adult children of emotionally absent parents, where I found community with others who truly understood my experience. Hearing their stories, some heartbreakingly similar to mine, reinforced that I wasn't alone, wasn't crazy, wasn't too sensitive. The validation from these strangers, who had nothing to gain by supporting me, was profoundly healing. Through this intensive period of growth and preparation, Zoe remained my steadfast ally, offering her couch indefinitely and providing emotional support when the weight of everything became too much. Professor Bennett checked in regularly with encouragement and practical advice. Even Amelia, after realizing her mistake in speaking to reporters, made amends by publicly defending me online and connecting me with her uncle, a financial advisor who helped me set up a new, independent bank account. Gradually, I felt myself growing stronger. The panic attacks that had plagued me since the live stream became less frequent. I began sleeping through the night again. Most importantly, I started to trust myself, my perceptions, my feelings, my decisions. You're not the same person who walked into my office 2 weeks ago, Miss Rodriguez remarked during our follow-up meeting. You seem centered. I nodded, realizing she was right. I think I've spent my whole life looking for permission to exist on my own terms. I'm done waiting for it. With my support team in place and my confidence growing, I was ready to share my story, the full story, with Marina Chen. Not for revenge, not for attention, but because the truth deserved to be told. And maybe, just maybe, it would help someone else feel less alone. The article, titled "The Price of Perfection: How Academic Achievement Became a Battlefield in One Family," was published in The Atlantic on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 month after my graduation. Marina had done a masterful job weaving my personal story into a broader discussion of family dynamics, achievement pressure, and the hidden epidemic of emotional neglect among high-achieving families. The piece included my calm, factual account of growing up in the Walsh household, the dual standards applied to Tyler and me, the constant pressure to achieve without recognition, the specific instances when my accomplishments were minimized while my brothers were celebrated. Marina had meticulously fact-checked every claim, and the article included documented evidence of the pattern screenshots of my mother's social media posts, showing she'd attended 37 of Tyler's games in the past year. But none of my academic events, email exchanges, where my requests for my parents to attend important ceremonies were dismissed or ignored. Most damning was the side-by-side timeline of my graduation day and Tyler's baseball tournament, showing clearly that my parents had chosen the latter while lying to me about emergency meetings. There was no editorializing, no emotional language, just facts laid bare for readers to interpret. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, the article was trending on every social media platform. News outlets picked it up, psychologists weighed in, and thousands shared their own stories of similar family dynamics. The hashtag Seen by the World began trending alongside my name. My parents' carefully crafted public image was crumbling. Their initial strategy had been to paint me as unstable and attention-seeking, but Marina's thorough reporting made those claims impossible to sustain. In desperation, they agreed to a television interview with a national morning show, apparently believing they could charm their way out of the situation. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. My father, usually so smooth and authoritative in public, appeared cold and defensive on camera. When the interviewer asked why they had missed my Harvard graduation for a regular season baseball game, he snapped, "We had already seen her graduate from high school. It's essentially the same ceremony, just with fancier buildings." My mother, attempting to salvage the interview, added, "Jessica has always been independent. We raised her to be self-sufficient. Tyler needs more support and encouragement. That's just good parenting, adjusting to each child's needs." "So you're saying Jessica needed less love and attention than her brother?" the interviewer asked. The awkward silence that followed spoke volumes. As public opinion solidified against them, an unexpected ally emerged from within my family. My grandmother, my father's mother, called me for the first time since the live stream. "Jessica," she said, her voice quavering with age and emotion, "I've stayed quiet too long. What they did to you, what they've been doing for years, it's wrong. Your grandfather and I noticed it when you were just a little thing. How Robert and Diane would fawn over Tyler and barely acknowledge your achievements. We tried to say something once, and they limited our visits after that." Tears streamed down my face as she continued. "I always tried to make it up to you during our time together. I don't know if you noticed, but I want you to know that I saw you. I've always seen you. And I'm so proud of the woman you've become." Her validation was healing in a way I hadn't anticipated. Shortly after our call, she gave her own interview to Marina, confirming my account of the family dynamics from the perspective of someone who had witnessed it for decades. The next day, Angela Morrison, our family's former housekeeper who had worked in our home throughout my childhood, contacted me through social media. "I remember how they treated you," she wrote. "How your mother would put your academic awards in a drawer while your brother's baseball trophies got prominent display in the living room. How your father would work late on nights when you had piano recitals, but would rearrange his surgery schedule for Tyler's games. I wanted to say something back then, but I needed that job to support my own kids. I'm sorry, Jessica, you deserved better." With her permission, I shared her message with Marina, who included it in a follow-up article exploring the broader impact of my story. Then came the most surprising development. Tyler texted me late one night, "Jess, can we talk? Not about mom and dad. Just us." We met at a quiet cafe halfway between Boston and his baseball training facility in Connecticut. He looked different, subdued, uncertain, so unlike the confident golden child I'd grown up with. "I've been seeing a therapist," he admitted after we'd sat in awkward silence for several minutes, after everything blew up. "I needed to talk to someone. And she's helped me see some things I didn't want to see before." "Like what?" I asked cautiously. "Like how differently they treated us. I always thought it was normal, that I was special because of baseball and you were just good at everything without trying." He stared into his coffee. "But that wasn't true, was it? You worked really hard, probably harder than me." "I did," I said simply. "I'm starting to realize that what they did, pitting us against each other, making me the favorite, dismissing your achievements, it messed us both up. In different ways, but still." He looked up at me, his eyes showing vulnerability I'd never seen before. "I'm sorry, Jess. For the interview, for the texts, for all of it. I was wrong." His apology wasn't perfect, and our relationship was far from healed. But it was a start. Tyler was beginning to question the family narrative, to see the dynamics for what they truly were. It gave me hope that perhaps, with time and continued therapy, we might build a healthier sibling relationship independent of our parents' influence. My parents, however, were not interested in reconciliation or growth. As their public reputation continued to deteriorate, they made one final, desperate attempt to regain control. Without warning, they showed up at Zoe's apartment building one evening, somehow having obtained her address. The intercom buzzed, and when Zoe answered, my father's voice came through. "Jessica, we know you're in there. We're coming up to talk. This has gone far enough." Panic seized me momentarily, but I took a deep breath, remembering Dr. Kim's guidance on maintaining boundaries. When they knocked on the door, I opened it but stood firmly in the doorway, not inviting them in. My mother looked uncharacteristically disheveled, my father grimly determined. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the chasm between us palpable. "You need to end this," my father finally said. "Call off your media crusade. Issue a statement saying it was all a misunderstanding. We can still fix this." "This isn't about fixing our public image," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "It's about acknowledging the truth of how you've treated me my entire life." "We gave you everything," my mother hissed, her composure cracking. "The best schools, the best opportunities." "You gave me things," I interrupted, echoing my words from our phone call. "Not love, not attention, not validation. And now you're here not because you miss me or because you're sorry, but because you're worried about how you look to others." My father's face hardened. "We're prepared to take legal action if this continues. Defamation, slander. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation," I said, thankful for Miss Rodriguez's coaching. "Everything I've said is documented and verifiable. I'm not interested in destroying you. I just want to be free to tell my own story." The confrontation escalated, with my parents alternating between threats and guilt trips. They claimed I was tearing the family apart, ruining Tyler's career prospects, causing my mother anxiety that required medication. When I remained firm in my boundaries, my father's tone turned nasty. "You always were the difficult one," he sneered, "always demanding attention, always making everything about you. This little performance of yours just proves what we've always known: you're fundamentally selfish." Something in me snapped then, not into anger, but into perfect clarity. "I think you should leave now," I said quietly. "We're not finished," my father insisted, attempting to push past me into the apartment. That's when Zoe stepped forward, phone in hand. "I've been recording this entire conversation," she stated calmly. "And I've already texted our neighbors to be on standby. If you don't leave immediately, we'll call the police and report harassment." My parents looked stunned, as if they couldn't believe their intimidation tactics weren't working. After a tense moment, my father grabbed my mother's arm. "This isn't over," he said, but the empty threat held no power over me anymore. As they retreated down the hallway, I felt a profound sense of liberation. For the first time in my life, I had stood my ground with them and refused to be manipulated or intimidated. I had spoken my truth calmly and with dignity. I closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling a breath that felt like I'd been holding it my entire life. Zoe looked at me with concern, but I surprised both of us by smiling. "I think I'm going to be okay," I said, and for the first time, I truly believed it. 6 months after graduation, I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new apartment, watching the Boston skyline glitter in the evening light. It wasn't large, a one-bedroom in Cambridge that I could just afford on my new salary, but it was mine. Completely, undeniably mine. So much had changed since that fateful graduation day. I had accepted the position at Innovatech and thrown myself into the work, finding unexpected fulfillment in their educational access initiatives. My Harvard connections and the public attention from my story had accelerated my career trajectory, allowing me to lead a project developing scholarship programs for first-generation college students. But the most profound changes weren't professional, they were personal. My apartment walls displayed framed photos of what I now called my chosen family. Zoe laughing during our weekend trip to Cape Cod, Professor Bennett and me at an academic conference where we'd presented together, my therapy group after a workshop on boundary setting, Amelia and her parents who had formally adopted me for holidays. There were even a few tentative photos with Tyler, who continued his own healing journey separate from our parents. These relationships were different from any I'd known before, built on mutual respect, genuine care, and unconditional acceptance. No achievements required, no perfection expected, just authentic connection. Dr. Kim had helped me understand that healing wasn't linear. Some days were still difficult. I occasionally caught myself slipping into old patterns, overworking to prove my worth, seeking validation through achievement, doubting my perceptions. But now I recognized these tendencies and had tools to redirect them. My morning journal practice had become sacred time. That day's entry reflected on how far I'd come. Asterisk. 6 months ago, I thought losing my family meant I was broken beyond repair. Now I understand that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from relationships that demand you diminish yourself. I'm not broken. I'm becoming whole for the first time. Asterisk. The buzzer interrupted my reflection, Zoe, arriving for our weekly dinner. As we prepared the meal together, she updated me on her graduate program while I shared stories from work. The ease between us still felt like a gift. Over pasta, she asked about recent developments with my family. Tyler's doing well, I said. He's still playing baseball, but he's also taking business classes. I think he's starting to envision a life beyond what our parents planned for him. And your parents? She asked carefully. I twirled pasta around my fork, considering. 3 weeks ago, I received a formal letter from them, actual paper mail, typed and signed. Very lawyer-like. What did it say? They want to re-establish limited contact on their terms. No acknowledgement of any wrongdoing, of course. Just clinical language about moving forward in a productive manner. I shrugged. I'm still deciding how to respond. The truth was more complicated than I could express. While I had no illusions about my parents suddenly becoming the supportive, loving family I'd always craved, part of me wondered if some form of boundaried relationship might be possible eventually. Dr. Kim and I had discussed this extensively, how to maintain my hard-won independence and self-worth, while potentially allowing some contact on my terms. After dinner, I showed Zoe the website for the Jessica Walsh Foundation for Educational Equity, which had launched the previous month with seed funding from several Harvard alumni who had been moved by my story. The foundation provided support for high-achieving students, estranged from their families, financial assistance, mentorship, and community. It's amazing how you've channeled everything into helping others, Zoe remarked. It's been healing, I admitted. Every time I speak with a student who feels unseen or invalidated by their family, I remember that feeling. And every time I can help them feel valued and supported, it's like healing a piece of my younger self too. The foundation had already partnered with 3 universities to establish protocols for supporting estranged students. Next month, I would be speaking at Harvard's graduation ceremony about resilience and finding support outside traditional family structures. Are you nervous about going back to Harvard Yard? Zoe asked. A little, I confessed, but it feels right somehow. Coming full circle. Later, after Zoe had left, I opened my laptop to find an email from Marina Chen. The 1-year anniversary of my graduation was approaching, and she wanted to do a follow-up piece on how my life had changed. As I typed my response, I reflected on the journey. The pain hadn't disappeared entirely. I still grieved the family relationship I never had and never would have. But alongside that grief had grown something unexpected, a profound sense of freedom and authenticity. For the first time in my life, I was living according to my own values, building relationships that nourished rather than depleted me, and using my voice to help others. I had learned that family isn't defined by blood or legal ties. Family consists of the people who truly see you, who celebrate your achievements no matter how inconvenient, who show up not because of obligation but because of love. Sometimes, the family you need is the one you build yourself, piece by careful piece. The next morning, I walked through Harvard Yard exactly 1 year after my graduation. The setting was the same, but I was transformed. Standing in the spot where I had once felt so alone and abandoned, I now felt strong, connected, and purposeful. The live stream that had begun as a desperate attempt to be seen had become a catalyst for authentic visibility, not just for me, but for thousands of others with similar experiences. I thought about all the messages I'd received over the past year. Asterisk. Your story gave me the courage to establish boundaries with my own parents. Asterisk. Asterisk. For the first time, I don't feel crazy or ungrateful for acknowledging how my family's conditional love damaged me. Asterisk. Asterisk. Watching you rebuild your life, after standing in your truth, has inspired me to do the same. Asterisk. These connections were the unexpected gift that had emerged from my pain, a community of people healing together, supporting each other, validating experiences that had too long been dismissed. As I stood there, a student approached me, recognition in her eyes. "You're Jessica Walsh," she said. "Your foundation helped my roommate stay in school after her parents cut her off. I just wanted to say thank you." In that moment, I understood with perfect clarity that my worth had never been dependent on my parents' ability to see it. The value I brought to the world, my compassion, my resilience, my ability to connect deeply with others had always been there, waiting to be fully expressed once I broke free from the constraints of conditional love. I may not have had my parents in the audience on graduation day, but I had found something more valuable: the courage to let the world see me as I truly am, and the wisdom to recognize that was enough. What's your story of finding strength after disappointment? Have you ever had to create your own support system when the people you expected to be there for you weren't? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the family that truly sees and celebrates you is the one you build yourself. Thank you for being part of my journey, and I hope my story helps you feel less alone in yours.